why ERPs look like that transactional system. And I think the number one point is the legacy of where ERP was born, right? It was born specifically way back in the day, probably before you were born, Nate.
Most
I
like our
think I was born by that time, though, for sure. Uh,
Is your JD Edwards system just a data entry machine? What if it could actually help your business think, optimize forecasts, spot pricing gaps, and even prevent downtime? In this episode of Not Your Grandpa's JD Edwards, I talk with Manuel and Neyra from ERP Suites about how AI and Orchestrator are transforming JDE from a transactional system into a smart, self-improving enterprise engine. Stick with us. You'll walk away knowing how to prep your organization and your data for the next big leap in ERP. Welcome back to Not Your Grandpa's JD Edwards. I'm your host, Nate Bushfield. Today's episode dives into a bold question. Can JD Edwards be smart? To help us unpack this, I'm joined by Manuel and Neyra, VP of AI and products at ERP Suites. Manuel has decades of experience at the intersection of ERP, product development, and AI innovation, literally from JD Edwards to Oracle and now into intelligent automation. We're going to talk about what it really takes to introduce AI into your JDE environment and why it's not as far-fetched or futuristic as you might think. Manuel, welcome. First off, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Nate. It's a sunny day here in Denver, bright blue skies, and we're in full swing of spring, although that also brings a lot of variability in Denver with its weather. But right now it's beautiful. But happy to
Yeah.
be here. Thanks for inviting me, Nate.
Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, we finally got a sunny day here in Cincinnati. Everything's flooded. It's a weird time. I saw somebody swimming in the street earlier today. That was a really weird experience. He was on top of somebody's car that's mostly submerged.
Oh
Very,
my
very weird
goodness.
look. But for those who haven't met you yet, can you share a bit about your background and maybe what brought you into the world of JD Edwards?
Absolutely. So I started off in JD Edwards in 1995 as a software developer straight out of college. I went to the University of Colorado, Go Buffs, and Prime there, being there has brought us back on the map in the football scene. So great time to be a CU Buff for sure. But I was recruited at the University of Colorado and joined JD Edwards at the time to help build what was Project Everest. That was the internal project name for what was then, we're about to release as One World that we did in kind of the second half of 1990s, right towards the end of 1990s. Brought that up, with the team, developed functionality. I was in the financials area, developing the financial set of apps, and then grew through a variety of different roles that I held. Application manager, running product management, product strategy for different areas. Went into the development of Rapid Start, which we call them in JD Edwards, an Oracle terminology. Was Oracle Business Accelerators was the term versus Rapid Start. Then I worked with the partner ecosystem and got to travel all over the world as JD Edwards grew. We got acquired in 2003 by PeopleSoft, then 2005, 18 months later by Oracle. So yes, it's been a long story now. Here I am at ERP Suites, still based in Denver, enjoying it quite a bit. A lot of cool stuff that we're doing with AI and helping our customers transform their business. So it's a little bit of a nutshell. Big football fan, as you can tell, big sports fan, but definitely
Yeah.
love the sun and snow.
Yeah. Gotta love Coach Prime. He's doing crazy things out there. And his son, let's not make any comments about him. I can't see him going in the top three, but I mean, there are some realists out there that are with me. There are some like his dad that believe he is, but let's just leave it at that. But
We will see.
anyway,
We will see how that
yeah.
plays out. I get where you're coming from, though. So that's for
Mm,
sure.
all right. Well, let's get into the reason why we brought you on here.
Absolutely.
Let's start with a foundational truth. Most companies are still using JD Edwards primarily for data entry. Why do you think
Mhm.
JD Edwards has traditionally been seen as a transaction only system?
And so that's a great question. And I'm actually going to abstract it a little bit broader. I'm going to say why ERPs look like that transactional system. And I think the number one point is the legacy of where ERP was born, right? It was born specifically way back in the day, probably before you were born, Nate.
Must
I
not
think I
carbonate.
was born by that time, though, for sure. Uh, but it was born to be an accounting, system of record. That's what it was, right? So it was meant for keying information, and then as companies adopted ERP from that financials perspective, there was other needs, right? Other needs in different parts of the businesses, procurement, other manufacturing, and then it grew into operational areas such as sales, right? And CRM, et cetera. So it started expanding. So, but the origin was a transaction-based system. And people that certainly grew up in that, maybe my generation, even the generation before me, right, looked at it that way. But the reality is that it's evolved. It's evolved through time. So, but the big point is its legacy. Two, they are the investments that customers have made for ancillary systems that surround ERP, whether it was a preference for certain capabilities or the capabilities that existed in the ERP, be it JD Edwards or other systems, right? Did not mean their needs. They bought ancillary systems, and now they have that. So they continue to look at JD Edwards as a transactional or other ERPs as a transactional system. But I believe in today's age, because what are we here, right? 2025, 30 years since I started this industry. It's just crazy to say, but here I am with a few less hairs and a more gray hairs than I did when I started at JD Edwards. But I think the biggest impediment or the biggest is humans perceptions. Humans, how we look at things, we are judgmental people, right? And we make decisions on technology, and it's hard to break away from that. But the reality is, I think what you're getting at is ERP is much more than a transactional type of system of just entering data, right? It can serve a lot of different things, and certainly AI is going to transform that even further.
Yeah. So it's interesting to even think about what it was originally thought of, because all these different applications, everything that has really been changing in the ERP space, yes, but also in the JD Edwards space, it's insane how much that it really is evolving. But what would you say is holding back organizations from evolving JD Edwards ERPs into something smarter, something more autonomous?
Great question. I think it's a couple of things. It's a little bit of a dichotomy here, right? One, lack of awareness, right? Lack of awareness of what real AI is. And when I say real AI, I really mean enterprise AI, right? The thing that all of us have probably used in some shape, way, or form, right, has been using ChatGPT to produce an image, to produce, a refined job posting, or refine a document, a set of marketing we're publishing. And no digs at marketing, right? But there's certain things that we can do there with minimal risk. But when people start thinking of that type of functionality in the context of enterprise or our business, then there's a little bit skittiness, right? Saying, well, those are the limits of AI. But the reality is a ChatGPT versus a true enterprise AI solution, while related, while having similar technologies, very different types of systems.
Right. And you did mention AI. Obviously, we obviously we're talking about it, but when would you say a company is going to know when their ERP is ready for AI?
Great question. And it's one thing is the system, which we'll talk about here in a moment. But again, right, we're still in charge, right, in terms of humans, right? We haven't gotten to Skynet yet, right, in terms of the Terminator movie and that kind of scenario. So it's first thing, making sure people understand, people have a strategy, people have policies in place for how AI is going to be used and what's not going to be permitted as well. It is very important, right? Having backing by the leadership team. Once you have that, then it's about, hey, have you taken care of that maintenance that is necessary, that upkeep of making sure that you're ready to adopt AI? It's no different that if you're a company and you're running QuickBooks and you grow up and now you need a full strength ERP like JD Edwards or the others that Oracle has. It's about making sure you have your processes defined, make sure that things are in top shape, and you're going to get the most out of the solution. AI is no different, right? If you don't make sure that you've done your prep work for data, make sure data's in good shape, make sure compliance is outlined properly, as well as security. It's defined who can use it, how can they use it, what features are they going to have. When you have those things, then you're ready to adopt. Now, it doesn't need to be big bang either, Nate. You can do these kinds of things in spot areas, and that's actually what we're seeing from customers. They want quick wins. They want to be able to prove that enterprise AI is real, not just from a solution perspective, but actually real value kind of being driven into the business.
Yeah. I will say I'm more of an iRobot fan. Terminator was good too, though. I mean, I'm not going to discount
That's a good
Arnold
one.
Schwarzenegger. I mean, that guy, he knows how to act, and now he's a senator somewhere. I don't know how that works, but good for him.
How did that happen?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But I took a look at your presentation that you recently had at
Mhm.
SCUG, and I loved the four-phase AI journey roadmap, starting with alignment day and ending with real solutions in production. Can you maybe walk us through those phases, what happens at each step, and mostly why each step is really needed?
Gotcha. No, great point. And overall, what this is, when I speak to people about the journey that we put together, it's analogous to an implementation methodology of an ERP, right? It's really given a map to see how do you make sure that ultimately you have a process, how you're going to implement, that you're going to cover your bases, and that at the end, when you're finished implementing, you not only get a working solution, but like I said earlier, you get the return on investment. Because let's be real, right? None of our customers or companies out there using JD Edwards will adopt new technology unless there's something in it for the business, right? And it's going to drive efficiencies and value. So that's what we decided to carve out, knowing that each customer has different, kind of political situation internally in the company. What is the perception of AI, how their system is set up, what they're looking to accomplish, right? And what are the areas that need to be looked at. So that four-phase approach, number one, is alignment day, really getting together with leadership at the customer and really understand where are they at, right? Have they established a strategy? Increasingly, we see that customers are, right, establishing a strategy around AI. And now it's like, well, what next? Where do we start in terms of use cases? But that first phase is key, Nate, to really understand where the customer's at. And then we have self-assessments. We have customers that self-assess, we assess too, and say, okay, this is where we think you are on the spectrum of AI adoption, where you're ready, or is there some other things that need to get done? And companies will be all over the map. That's first phase. Second phase is really getting deep dive and doing the assessment, right? And like I was talking earlier, what's the state of our data, right? And the key thing sometimes that's talked about in JD Edwards is the master data. What's the state of the master data? And is it clean? Is it representative of the entire business? Sometimes, yes. I know there are some customers very diligent and in making sure their data is clean, and even so have implemented solutions to ensure that data is clean and consistent. So kudos, right? Not everyone's at the same state. There's also security, like I talked about earlier. Compliance, right, is another component as well. And last but not least is assessing the use cases. What are the ones that make sense? Because the use case that might fit your business, Nate, may be a fantastic
Yeah.
one for your business, but maybe it's not the primary one, right? There's not enough friction in that area for me that I need to look somewhere else. So that's the assess and roadmap kind of phase in a nutshell. Next is, okay, once we've assessed at each one of those steps that I highlighted briefly, you will get as a customer an assessment document, highlights what we found, where there are opportunities, where things are strong, and it'll carve out, okay, some work, some homework that needs to be done, or housekeeping that needs to be done with your JD Edwards system. Phase two then is the cleanse and optimize, right? How to, address that. And we certainly, with having intimate insight to the customer's environment, the idea is we can help with that, but customers have the option, if they want to do that themselves, they can, right? We do actually, that's why we give the documents that we provide with our findings and what we recommend, and they can implement their own. And then the last phase, last but not least, is actually developing and implementing the AI solution on a solid foundation. I like to use the house analogy, right? It's like if you have a two story house and you want to build a third story, you're going to want to make sure that your foundation is strong, right?
Oh yeah.
That's no different with implementing enterprise AI with JD Edwards. You're going to want to make sure your processes are up to snuff and the other areas are up to snuff before you implement. So that's the four-phased approach. One thing I do want to say though, and it's important, is sometimes customers look at it, okay, no, this is good, this is very complete, but I need to show something quick, right? I need to show something quick to the business that proves enterprise AI is real in terms of value and benefits, and improve the technology, right? Get over kind of some of the perceptions.
Yeah.
So we can do that as well. We don't, it doesn't have to be big bang. It could be in a spot area where we do a compressed version of this.
Yeah, of course. And obviously, in those early phases, you were talking about data, master data. Um, so, in terms of the actual security and maybe even the data governance, how important is that in terms of those early phases? How important is it that that is under control?
Extremely. Cannot imagine, right? But while, as we know, AI can do some very interesting things, right? And some of which we only get a little kind of sniff of when we're doing ChatGPT. What we can do in terms of being able to, have an agent assess situations, learn from it, and be able to predict scenarios or recommend courses of action. Excuse me. That may be a great enabler for you. But if I have access to that and I'm not supposed to have access to that function, it could be detrimental, right? It could be detrimental in terms of, of compliance or SOX type of situations. So it's important that, you be able to set up the AI solutions so the people that need certain access to be able to do their job, right, to whatever broad spectrum it is, they can, without getting into other areas that maybe are sensitive. And that's one of the big differences between just standard AI and enterprise AI. The solutions like Oracle that have constructs, and they actually just announced a new platform for building AI agents about a couple weeks ago that they just GA'd, that's meant to simplify things and be able to facilitate the creation of security and be able to set up compliance properly.
Yeah. I mean, it's easier than ever to create your own or at least assess your own security. I mean, that's what's great about JD Edwards. It's still rolling out more creative and cutting edge applications that are there to help their users. But how important would you say change management is when introducing AI to longstanding processes and even teams?
It's massive, and it's
Yeah.
increasingly in the AI space. It's not just the technology, and don't get me wrong, Nate, and everyone listening. The technologies that we look at, right, using here are very different than what we're used to in the ERP world, right? Being able to create transactions and a sales order and processing it, and even having some intelligence in some of those apps to be able to predict, right, pricing with our advanced pricing engines and whatnot. But now you take it to the next level with certain type of capabilities, and the technology, while for folks like you and I that are very interested in it, and we get wowed by what technology can do, that can also be something that drives a little bit of fear and uncertainty to an individual, right? What is this really going to do? How is it going to do? What are the side effects, right? And the other part of it is, well, I'm going to be replaced, right, by that AI agent. And like I said earlier, right, we're not at that Skynet point.
Yeah, not yet.
Yeah, not yet. But what is true is there are companies today, and that industry is growing, right? Companies that are adopting AI solutions, and it's in the billions of dollars that people, probably hundreds of billions of dollars now that are investing in AI solutions. And what, by humanity being replaced by machines, far-fetched, right? At this point in time, and maybe for quite a bit of time. But what's real today is if you're using AI, Nate, to be more effective, more efficient, and I'm not, and I'm competing with you, I am absolutely at a disadvantage there, right, in terms of being able to adopt. So that is certainly one thing, right? Change management, back to your point, right? I tie this together. Change management from a technology perspective is certainly a component because we're gonna have to learn how to adopt. But the change management, I think that's the biggest part. That's why methodologies like the one I highlighted earlier are important, because we will also deal there with, throughout the 4 cycles, is the change management side of the house, right? People not only getting over and understanding that maybe the cheese will be moved a bit in terms of its job role, right? But it'll be enhanced. So some of the, you and I think a lot of people listening to this podcast probably have more work to do than they can get in any day. It's just the reality of today's world, right? So how about a world where you can get your stuff faster and you can get to those actual things that are differentiators? That's what it's really about. It may change some things. So we have to learn how to work with AI to be able to get the maximum out of it. And it puts us in better situations to be successful.
Exactly. I mean, I will say I have, obviously, everyone has probably heard of, if you put 2 AI robots in the same room, they come up with some language just so they can talk to each other without humans understanding. But this is worlds away from that. There's no reason to be alarmed.
Correct.
Well, but let's talk about actual AI solutions that you're building at ERP suites, because some of them are wild, but in a good way, in a safe way.
Right.
So can you break down the automated quote to order solution that uses document understanding and orchestrations?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that, that we've been leveraging AI is document understanding type of functionality, right? That can read documents, right? Can read
Mhm.
documents, not only printed documents, right? Something that's typed out or electronically and then sent, but it can actually read handwriting, And that technology is evolving, right? So I don't wanna, it's still growing and maturing, but we've been able to get some use cases successfully reading handwriting. Maybe not mine, because I'm not a doctor, but I have doctor-like handwriting. Let's put it that way. But in that quote to order, the process we're trying to help with a set of customers is being able to streamline the process of getting a request for a quote, be an input, and getting into JD Edwards quickly and shortening the time, number one, to be able to create the quote, two, being able to optimize the quote, third, being able to have it approved by a manager. Okay? And that process today was taking longer than expected, and needless to say, was affecting conversion rates, right? Actually getting a sales order completed and say, yes, I want to purchase that. So with that particular, being able to read the document automatically, putting it into JD Edwards, two, being able to use anomaly detection, which can be used for anomalies, but it can also be used for conformities, being able to find patterns that are successful, right, in terms of being able
Mhm.
to get a sales order approved. So we use that and we cut out a significant amount of time and be able to drive significant, increase in their conversion rates for their orders.
Right. And obviously, we're talking more about value added here more than value lost. And I feel like a lot of people here are either listening to this to understand more about AI or to find out a way that they can add more value utilizing this new, well, new, I say, but AI has been around for years, but new cutting edge, trying to change their business. So, to touch on a little bit more about that presentation, but also more of what AI is doing in ERP suites, the digital sales assistant, how
Mhm.
does that fit into JD Edwards users' workflows and what kind of value does it add?
Great question. So, and actually, that could be an extension of the quote to order process, or it could
Mm,
be a standalone part of it. And I'm glad you brought this one up because it is a little bit a different modality, right? The modality that I talked about with the quote to order is what we're calling embedded AI, right? That functionality of document understanding is embedded in the sales order application in JD Edwards. So the user still works in whatever, the CSR is working in their home, right? Which is sales order entry. And they get everything working there. So they continue in that example, you're enhancing that person's experience, making them more productive while still staying in that same domain. Now, but in talking to other use cases, other customers, the sales assistant was needed to be able to help CSRs, maybe green CSRs, that are new to the business, but need to be productive just as much, right? And in cases where there are cross-sell, upsell type of opportunities that are more sophisticated than what even JD Edwards has some capabilities in that space, but being able to do something more sophisticated, to be able to look at and be able to look through thousands, if not hundreds of thousands or more of records, and be able to draw, suggestions. Plus, being able to advise the customer sales representative and saying, when customers buy this, they also have dependencies and being able to buy these other things. They're not necessarily part of a kit. It's independent, but it's something that we found that they typically come back for, and being able to provide that insight to the CSR to make him or her a little bit more productive, helpful, right? From the customer service perspective is what it really does, as well as being able to streamline the approval process, to be able to do it with a digital assistant. And the beauty of it, you might say, well, now they're outside of the digital assistant. What happens to JD Edwards, right? So as the CSR is interacting with the digital assistant, as well as the person, manager that may be approving, right? The special kind of buckets, it all gets updated. Once it's approved, it's updated real time into JD Edwards. So again, there's no additional typing, there's no transfer of data, right? It all does it seamlessly within the solution that we've built. So again, it kind of embeds it, streamlines it, and in a couple of cases has enhanced it significantly.
Oh yeah, I mean the AI sales, well, the sales assistant. I feel like it's right now it's at the ground. Like we're only making it better, only building it up. There's so much opportunity that can really come with it. But in terms of the actual identifying of it, how is AI not only identifying issues, but it's also actively fixing and even flagging them in JD Edwards?
Yes, and again, that one's an interesting one in terms of being able to find not only, and this is not only, I'll talk about it from the business side of the house, Nate, but it's also applicable in the technical side, technical world of JD Edwards, right? Being able to look at, right, like system stability and being able to predict things, scenario before, as well as you said, one thing is to predict, another thing is to advise. A completely different thing is to self-heal, right? So that's us doing that. So I can, we can go on. I know we have a bit of time here, but I'll speak about the business side of it, is being able to look at those transactions and maybe historically those transactions. This is where it gets interesting in terms of being able to find patterns, is saying there is a pattern, but recognizing those patterns actually are inconsistent with more recent patterns. What happened? And if I could go out and find out, oh, we changed some business processes because of, and because the business environment changed. Competitor did something that disrupted the business, and now we're going to further disrupt it in some sort of way. Being able to adapt that is what's important, right? The old systems, in terms of being able to look at just plain analytics, would say, here's a pattern, here's a pattern, here's a pattern, right? Versus AI, where it can find the patterns and they can say, well, this one's the prevalent one, right? And where it gets even more interesting is you can look at external factors, right? Being able to bring in outside data without exposing your internal precious data. It should be private, right, for your company. You can augment it with outside data and say, hey, this is what's going on in the general industry. And it aligns to what you're thinking. This is a good thing, right? And maybe even be able to suggest some things above and beyond what you've considered. That's where it gets interesting, being able to differentiate some patterns that maybe are dated versus the ones that are new and going to be more effective in today's world.
And again, I mean, there's so much opportunity when it comes to AI. There's so much that we're doing as ERP suites. There's so much people out there in the world that are really on the cutting edge of AI and really making the changes. But something that actually Drew Robb was on the pod not too long ago.
Oh,
We
nice.
talked, yeah, and we talked a little bit about AI, talked about how it works with the job structure, how people should be trained for it to better utilize and get more out of their AI solutions. So, I mean, with applications like this, with products like this, it really shows how the combination of both the human mind and AI really can elevate your business to a higher level than what it can do just on its own. But If your business is looking at how to take JD Edwards beyond data entry, now is the time to start the conversation. You can head to erpsuites.com and learn more about ERP Suites' AI assessment process or connect with Manuel's team to begin your own AI journey, whether it's one use case or a long-term roadmap. But that's a wrap for today's Not Your Grandpa's JD Edwards. Huge shout out to Manuel for helping us understand how AI is not only possible inside JDE, but it's already happening. If you found value in today's episode, hit that subscribe button, leave a review, share it with your team or someone who still thinks AI is science fiction. But until then, we'll catch you next time. Keep asking questions, keep modernizing, and keep making JD Edwards just damn efficient. Thank you.